when you're in that middle zone long term, right? When we're consistent in that middle zone, two things happen. Number one, you're never putting your body into fat storage mode.
Okay.
Helpful.
Definitely helpful.
And number two, your body realizes that food is always coming. It is never a time of famine, and it will actually release its fat stores. Welcome to Salad with a Side of Fries. I'm your host, Jen Trepic, talking wellness and weight loss for real life. We're here to clear up the myths, misinformation, bad science, and marketing to teach you how to eat and how to cheat. Are you ready? I'm having salad with a side of fries. Hey, we are back again. I am Jen Trepic, your host of Salad with a Side of Fries, and I'm here with my friend Stevie.
Hey, guys.
So today's episode is life hack food choices.
Awesome.
So this kind of comes from a lot of people, especially a lot of my clients when we first start out, because they're so highly motivated. They're like, just tell me what to eat, and that's all I'm going to eat. Right?
Yep. Been there.
Yeah. You know, tell me what to eat, tell me what to cut out, and like, I'll do it. And I wish it was that simple of an answer, right? It kind of depends on the goal.
Right.
Right? Like, are we taking a 1 or 2 week reset or repair? Because that's different than if we're talking long-term living our life eating.
Right.
We'll do an episode about the 1 to 2 week reset repair. Today's episode is long-term, sustainable, lifelong way of eating.
Okay.
To stay on top of our health and therefore on top of our weight.
Okay.
Okay? Because again, I'm always talking about health over the scale. Right?
Yes.
Listen to BMI is BS. It's not about the scale, right? So how do we eat for our health, right? And we've talked in the past in other episodes about eating for nutrition.
Right.
Right? And learning how to choose foods for nutrition. But really, and especially when it comes to weight loss, it's really about blood sugar. So when our blood sugar is too high or when our blood sugar is too low,
Okay.
our body is storing fat. So
Okay.
let's talk about this.
Yeah.
So first, let's start with the instance of like our blood sugar is too high. Do you remember the old I Love Lucy episode when they're in the candy factory?
And she's stuffing chocolate in her mouth on the conveyor belt? Yes.
Yeah. So
Love that.
just right. So explain to everybody, like, what was the premise? What were they supposed to do? And then what happened?
So I guess they were supposed to be packaging chocolates. The conveyor belt started moving too quickly, so they couldn't get them packaged quickly enough, so the chocolate comes running down the conveyor belt. And so when she starts having too many chocolates in front of her, she just starts stuffing them in her mouth, in her shirt, more in her mouth.
Yeah.
until
they
it's
were
just
everywhere.
out of control. Yes.
Yeah. So not that different is our body.
Okay.
So, when food comes at a nice, even pace, your body produces insulin, which carries the glucose to be used by your muscles and your cells for energy.
Yep.
Okay, so your muscles and your cells take in what they need and then close. And it continues throughout the body. So if there's extra, our fat cells, lovely fat cells, are always open. They never
ready
close.
to grab.
Right. So they store all of the extra and they store the extra insulin.
Okay.
So like when it comes too fast or there's too much, our body also overproduces insulin trying to balance that.
Okay.
So when our blood sugar is too high, right, all this extra, our body is storing as fat.
Okay. And is that a lot of times when you feel like you're insatiable at that point? Or is it the other way around?
Okay, so really interesting. What you're talking about is actually hunger,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
Hunger and
Well,
satiety.
Yes.
So similar to, like, insulin is a hormone,
Yes.
right? We can become insulin resistant.
Okay.
That's diabetes, right?
Yes.
Similar to that, you can become resistant to the hormones around hunger and satiety.
Okay.
So yes, it's correlated.
Okay.
And fat cells on your body impact those hormones.
Okay.
And our body's response to all of these things, that's also sort of like a whole episode onto itself.
Okay. Interesting.
But so just like we can become insulin resistant, we can become resistant to the hormones that tell us when we're hungry and when we're satisfied. So
Okay.
if you are insatiable or once you start eating, you find it difficult to stop, you're probably resistant to leptin, right?
Okay.
And you're probably also storing a lot of that stuff as fat because you're
eating more than you need.
Right.
That
The
makes
other
sense.
time when that can happen is if we're eating a lot of foods, or what I call food-like substances, where we're eating stuff, but there's no nutrition.
So there's no fiber or fat or protein to actually keep you satisfied and
Right. Or vitamins and minerals, where
That's it.
you're right. Like your body's way of saying, like, I need things is to tell you it's hungry.
Okay.
So if it's getting food, but it's not getting anything that it can properly use, it's going to continue to say I'm hungry because it's looking for vitamins and minerals and nutrients and fat
Right.
and protein and fiber.
Right. Okay.
So that's sort of the instance of our blood sugar being too high and we're storing everything as fat. And what does that look like in real life? Like we were just saying, you know, you're sort of insatiable, like you don't stop eating. Or maybe you sit down at the restaurant and you start with the bread basket.
Okay.
So let's say we go to the restaurant, you order a lovely salad and steamed fish and vegetables, and then they put the bread down and you're like, damn it, you know, and you're like, I'm hungry and I don't know what to do, you know?
Yep.
And so you're like, well, I'm just gonna have one piece, right? You have that one piece of bread. It literally flips the switch. Now your body is responding to this high glycemic bread.
Right.
The insulin starts flowing, your body's going, everything is happening, and
Okay.
now your salad and steamed fish and vegetables are going to be stored as fat because by the time it's getting through your system, your glycogen
already-
stores,
yeah.
you're good.
Yep. You already
Crazy,
like,
right?
filled up what you needed, or no,
Yeah.
not what you needed, but
filled
you
up.
filled it up,
Right.
with what you didn't need.
Right. So then the other extreme is when our blood sugar is too low.
Okay.
So when our blood sugar is too low, our body reacts like we were cavemen, right? So when humans were hunters and gatherers, and you didn't necessarily know when the next meal was coming, right?
Yep.
Like if you didn't make a kill that day, you didn't eat.
Right.
So the body, survival of the fittest, figured out a way to survive in times of famine.
Okay.
Okay, that's fat. Fat is fuel stored to be used later.
Right.
Okay. Yes, in some parts of the world there are famine, but our body doesn't realize there is a refrigerator full of food that we're just choosing not to eat.
Right.
And so our body says, I don't know when the next meal is coming. I have to hold on to what I get so that I can survive.
And so is that what causes low blood sugar?
Yeah. So, waiting too long to eat between meals, you know, like too much time between meals, not eating breakfast.
Okay.
I see this a lot with men in particular. You guys, dudes, you don't eat all day and then you eat this massive dinner. Like,
Yes.
Not great.
I see this with dudes too.
yeah.
I don't understand it because again, similar to if I don't work out, I'm not a nice person when I'm hungry. But that's fine.
Right. Hangry, right?
Yes, literally though.
Right. And so it's the starvation response.
Okay.
So if we're just not eating, or this could also look like cutting calories. Right? Like
dramatically.
I'm trying to lose weight. I'm just going to eat half of everything I would normally eat, but not change what I was eating. Like your body's just going to start storing everything as fat.
Okay.
You have to give your body nutrition at regular intervals, you know? So
Right.
the objective then is to always keep our blood sugar never too high and never too low. So we want to
Okay.
be in like this middle zone,
Okay.
right? This middle zone where you're never storing fat. So what happens when you're in that middle zone long term, right? When we're consistent in that middle zone, two things happen. Number one, you're never putting your body into fat storage mode.
Okay.
Helpful.
Definitely helpful.
And number two, your body realizes that food is always coming. It is never a time of famine. And it will actually release its fat stores because it says, I don't need these.
So your body is working essentially more efficiently. Mm-hmm. Okay.
And saying, and like, so the fat that you've been storing on, you know, storing on your body for survival so that if there's a time of famine, it's like, oh, wait, I don't need all this fuel that I've been storing.
Right.
Because I'm always going to get something.
Right. So your body lets that go.
Yeah. So a rule of thumb
which I think most people would like.
Yeah. So rule of thumb. And the other thing about that too is that long term, when you're in that consistent, in that middle zone consistently, your body is better equipped to handle the occasional spike. Okay. So you're going to eat birthday cake.
Yes.
Right? Like it was just my birthday. I am eating a cupcake.
Yes.
Right? Like whatever. I think I said to my friend that day, I was like, is it even a birthday if there isn't cake? Right?
No.
Right.
The answer is no.
So it doesn't mean you're never going to eat those things ever again. But when you're consistent in that middle zone, your body is better equipped to handle that occasional spike, and it doesn't have the same impact on your weight as it does today.
Okay.
So rule of thumb for that, you guys have heard me say it before, protein and fiber at every meal makes removing fat no big deal.
I like that.
Protein and fiber at every meal makes removing fat no big deal. Protein is clean, lean protein.
Yep.
Fiber is vegetables and sometimes fruit.
So on that note, there are some people who add fiber to like drinks and smoothies. How do you feel about that?
So I'm not the biggest fan of most fiber powders.
Right.
This could be a whole conversation onto itself. Bottom line is there are things around a fiber powder that you would want it to be. You want to have multiple sources of fiber. You want to also have some of the good stuff in there. Like certain fiber powders can clean out the bad stuff too, which you don't want.
Right.
So I don't recommend most generic fiber powders. If you need a fiber powder, DM me on Instagram. I will send you a high quality fiber powder that the doctors I work with swear by. But generally, I don't recommend artificially adding random fiber.
So it's really about finding the foods that have the fiber that you need.
Exactly.
Which are likely to be the foods that are more satisfying and healthier for you to begin with.
Exactly. So we're going to dive deeper into how we eat this way. But as a general rule of thumb, if you're walking away with anything, protein and fiber at every meal makes removing fat no big deal. And when I learned all of this and like what I'm about to talk to you guys about, it turned all of this stuff for me around food from being emotional. Like I used to think, of course, you just don't have the willpower to stay away from like the tray of pastries in the kitchen at work, or why can't you just not eat it when you see it? You know, like we have these sort of, abusive is an extreme word, but it's these, non-forgiving. Like
negative self-talk about how you don't have self-control. You don't resist things.
Right. And so when I learned all of this, it was all of a sudden like, oh, I get why that's appealing to me right now. What I actually need is this. And now all of these food decisions became intellectual instead of emotional.
Yep, that totally makes sense.
So this is what allowed me to say I've kicked my food issues.
Okay.
So here we are. What is it, right? So it's understanding the glycemic index and eating based on understanding glycemic impact. Okay. Glycemic index is a number rating given to foods based on how it impacts your blood sugar.
Okay.
So something that raises your blood sugar very quickly is going to be high glycemic.
Yep.
Something that, is slower or doesn't raise your blood sugar at all is low glycemic.
Right.
Okay, so that's the glycemic index. For reference, low GI foods, low glycemic index foods have a number rating of 0 to 55.
Okay.
Medium is 56 to 69. High is 70 and over.
Okay.
And you can Google it, right? Like this is not weird things. I'm not making this up. In Australia, the glycemic index rating is actually on food labels.
Oh, that's awesome.
So it's our country. I don't know. So that's the glycemic index. So glycemic index is about the quality of the food.
Okay.
Then there's the quantity of the food. That's glycemic load.
Okay.
Okay. So low glycemic load is 0 to 10. Medium glycemic load is 11 to 19. High glycemic load is 20 and over.
Okay.
So when we put these things together, glycemic load and glycemic index, right? Quantity and quality, you have glycemic impact.
Got it.
So the thing with all this, you can Google the numbers, but don't lose your common sense.
Right.
Okay. You're going to see that carrots are relatively high glycemic. compared to other vegetables.
Yes. That
Okay.
does not make them unhealthy.
Right, because their glycemic load is so low
Okay.
that you would have to eat so many of them for it to actually raise your blood sugar.
That makes a lot of sense because I do think that sometimes people get confused. I had someone tell me recently that bananas aren't healthy because they're high in sugar. And I was like,
Okay.
but
So bananas. So this
Yes.
is where you can actually, this whole thing gets much more in depth, and we'll do more episodes on this to help everybody.
Yes.
So the ripeness of a food can impact its glycemic
Yes.
rating.
Okay.
So bananas, for example, when they're yellow with a little bit of green,
Yes.
fine.
Yep.
Once they have brown spots,
Then they're sugar.
there's a lot more sugar.
Yes.
They're higher glycemic.
Yes. Okay.
Similar to the ripeness of food, how it's cooked, right? So boiling a bag of rice is higher glycemic than the old-fashioned steam for an hour rice.
Okay.
And it's kind of common sense.
Yes, it's been stripped of a lot of the nutrients that also add fiber. Or
Yeah, it's like it's been processed to make it cook in 10 minutes in this
Yes.
little bag. So like the more work
have to
machines
ask why that
do,
is.
right? So the more work machines do, the less work your body does.
Yep.
The objective is for our body to do the work.
I never thought about that with the boil and bag rice. That makes sense though. It's like the modern conveniences are there's a reason.
Right. So the other side of the spectrum from the carrots
Yes.
is M&Ms.
Okay.
Okay, so peanut M&Ms are technically low glycemic,
Okay.
but their load is very high. So it doesn't take very many of them to impact your blood sugar.
Right. Okay.
So don't lose your common sense.
Right.
Right?
Just because you see the peanut M&Ms are low does not mean I should have that for dinner instead of a salad with some carrots on it.
Right, or a salad with a side of fries. Boom.
Yes.
Sorry. I should get sound effects or something. Okay. So
I'm really mad that I missed that pun.
So what's cool about this is that, yes, we're going to choose our individual foods to have lower glycemic index,
Yes.
right? But you can also make your meal and sort of blunt the impact of some things that are higher glycemic.
Okay.
Right? So to lower the glycemic impact of something, we can add fiber,
Okay.
protein, and fat. Or
Got it.
fat, right? So we were talking about all the nuances to this, but we don't want to make it too complicated for like this one episode. So think about, here's how I sort of think about it. And one of my mentors taught me this and I was like, oh my God, you're a genius, right? So think about high glycemic foods as red, like
Okay.
the color red.
Yep.
Low glycemic foods are the color white. So if we eat the high glycemic food with something low glycemic, what's the color?
Pink.
Pink. Pink is closer to white than red.
Yes.
So it's a little better than if
Than
we
if
ate it
we-
by itself.
Yes. Got
Right?
it. Yep.
So
Sure do.
in real life, what that means is let's eat our appetizer, let's eat our salad, let's eat our vegetable soup, maybe some protein in there, and then have the piece of bread. Have the piece of bread with our meal.
Yes.
Instead of starting the meal with the bread as soon as it comes to the table.
Yes. Okay.
I also find like I eat less bread
So
once
you eat
I'm-
less of it because
yeah.
you put some nutrients in your body. And
Right.
you're not as ravenous as when you sat down, probably.
Yeah. And for me, like I'm only going to eat that bread if it's really good. So if it got cold while it was sitting there, I'm like, meh, less appealing. Okay. The other thing is like we were talking about birthdays. And I think about this, especially as it comes to Thanksgiving coming up. A lot of times we have this big meal and then there's like a break. And then eventually we have dessert.
Yes.
Well, so that dessert is red,
Yes.
high glycemic.
For sure.
If we have our dinner and then wait around a while, that red is being processed by our body and is red.
Yes.
If we have it right after our meal, our body is processing it with the rest of our food,
Right.
which hopefully with some turkey and vegetables and things like that, right?
Right.
That are helpful for us and sort of, so it blunts the impact of that dessert.
Okay. So then it's really all about it's all about the timing as well as what you're choosing.
Yeah.
Okay.
So here's, I always say this to everybody, like, I want you to walk away from every episode with something to do now.
Yes.
Okay. So Protein and fiber at every meal makes removing fat no big deal.
Okay.
Protein is clean, lean protein.
Yep.
Fiber is vegetables and sometimes fruit.
Okay.
Again, for most people, that's going to be progress, right?
Absolutely.
You can dive into the nuances of the glycemic index, but don't lose your common sense, right? Remember, we're going to eat for nutrients, focusing on low glycemic impact foods.
Yes.
Pairing our high glycemic impact foods with our healthful choices.
Yes.
So that we can go on and live the rest of our life. Because like I always say, who wants a life without French fries and cookie dough and dessert?
Not me.
Right. So I hope this is helpful. Here's your life hack. This is how to eat, guys. And I promise you, you'll be healthy and have energy, feel great, lose weight, take up less space physically, and rock your life.
Love it. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, friends, that's it for today's episode of Salad with a Side of Fries. Congratulations for making yourself and your health a priority. Thanks so much for joining us. Be sure to click subscribe or follow on your favorite podcast platform. Share us with a friend, and we'll be back next week. Always remember, you deserve it, and you are worth it. Happy healthy.